Okay, everyone, if you don't mind, I'm going to start a couple minutes early because maybe there'll be some time to grab a sandwich down the street, if you're all for that. I told Michael that a hungry audience is not always the best. So, anyway, very excited to have Michael Ghen here from Benefits Data Trust and St. Joseph's University. If you didn't understand all about Bitcoin, you may not get it through this presentation, but feel free to ask him afterwards. It's fascinating. Anyway, welcome, Michael.
Thanks everyone. Glad everyone stayed. I was a little worried this was at lunch. But like I said, I'm Mike Ghen. I've actually, since submitting this proposal, left Benefits Data Trust. It's a great company. You guys check them out. And I'm starting my own company, Reach Technologies, with some people. And I'll just speak a little bit about it because we do use Apache Unomi. It's kind of our backend. So I'm definitely here to talk about that today. My hope for this talk is that I want everyone to get enough information that they could leave and be able to evaluate Apache Unomi in their own organization. So there's a lot in Apache Unomi, and you can definitely read the whole doc, so I'm gonna kind of focus on some of the things that I found are basically the most useful parts and the core parts of Unomi. So just a brief overview of this talk. I do have some links up here that if you do want to go online and follow along, I do have kind of like a workshop. I will show some code today, so you'll get a little bit of that at the conference. I'm going to just introduce you to Apache Unomi, some of the ideas and core concepts that make up the value proposition for Unomi. And then what we'll do is talk about a little bit about how the segmentation works. And then the main thing that I want to focus on is rules, conditions, and actions. These are kind of the core pieces that I was using. I'm mostly interested and found Unomi at the Montreal Apache Roadshow because of the rules engine problems, which I'm sure some people have run into. Just a brief little bit about me. I do a lot of Bitcoin stuff. I'm a computer engineer through and through. I really have a little bit of ad tech and martech and fintech background, but I actually do a lot of healthcare, social services. And like I said, I found it recently finding a company we're using Unomi on the back end. So yeah, if any of this stuff on here interests you, definitely get in touch with me afterwards. I'd love to talk more about it. Okay, so Apache Unomi is a customer data platform, and I'm sure people are familiar with things like client relationship management systems. You might not have heard this CDP acronym before. If you check out the Google Trends, it's actually getting a little more popular on search. And basically what it is it's just a package of software that's easily deployed. It's really designed for marketers. And it's designed to address the specific challenges that you have with providing a custom tailored user experience for your customers or for anyone that you're working with. And the reason that that's so challenging is because all of this data lives in different systems. What a customer data platform provides is a central place where you can consolidate all of your customer information. And it also provides a good interface for getting that information for other systems that want to use it, either for analytics or for automation. So I'll break this definition down a little bit more and just talk about how Unomi fits this. So the first part of this is packaged software. So a customer data platform, like other platforms that you're probably familiar with, is provided in kind of a packaged format that can be deployed onto your own infrastructure, really without writing a lot of custom code. And that's one of the reasons that I kind of like this. So for Unomi, it's built with Java, and they use Karapa, which was not something that I was familiar with. But it's a container runtime environment for Java, I believe. And recently, what I've been doing with it is I have some instructions that I've contributed for running it on Docker to help with the evaluation. And in production, I run it on Kubernetes. So it's packaged and pre-built. The persistent and unified customer database portion is the most attractive part because what that gives you is a really easy way to store your information, and it gives you an easy way for marketers to kind of get access to that information and use it to drive actions that ultimately impact the business value and increase your competitive advantage. So, the back end here is actually Elasticsearch. So Apache Unomi uses Elasticsearch on the back end for its persistent data storage. And for the most part, your customers are thought of as just single JSON objects or single documents in Elasticsearch. And then this last part here is what I think is the most important part, and it's the part that really attracted me in using with Unomi, because I find this interface difficult to create and maintain on your own. And this is just getting information into Apache Unomi, coming from public places, many different websites, and then also kind of accessing the information for internal purposes, whether that be analytics or marketing automation. So at Reach Technologies, we run a case management system, and what we do is we basically control routing calls and text messages from patients who are in recovery to the appropriate case management specialist or certified recovery specialist. We currently we're currently working to pilot this in Pennsylvania with women who are pregnant. And basically what we're trying to do is create a health coach system. And we want to be able to provide this custom user experience. And the way that we do that is by building some middleware between Apache Unomi and several other systems. So our core what attracts people to us is we actually use Slack to manage all these conversations, because Slack is actually pretty good with compliance, we don't have our own apps. But on the back end, we have a lot of rules and segments that help us classify clients and help us provide real-time analytics about what are the needs of these patients. And we're heavily focused on just individual privacy, information security, rigorous evaluation, and person-to-person communications. Not necessarily writing custom code, so we don't really like to write a lot of custom code. The high-level diagram of Apache Unomi that you'll find online just sort of shows this view, and what you'll see is there is incoming and outgoing traffic on the left side. So on the far side, you'll see from different web pages and mobile apps, Apache Unomi offers an interface to collect events. It also allows you to have an interface to kind of update profiles, but a lot of it is event-driven. And then to pull stuff out of Unomi, it's kind of like what you're getting back out is context. So next time a user comes to your site, you might have tracked their session or put a cookie, have an ID, and so next time they come to your site, you can provide a more custom experience, or you might get their location and be able to provide weather experiences. And that's sort of how we say this context. The idea of a context server and Apache Unomi being a context server comes up a lot. In fact, I believe it's on this slide. All right, before I get into the context server, which is kind of interesting, the focus for today, I just want to make sure that people become familiar with these concepts, because I believe that if you understand Apache Unomi and you can see these concepts work, all of the other stuff, as far as there is an Analytics.js integration for getting web traffic in, for getting web mining information in, that's all very easy. I think these are very hard to see because for the most part, Apache Unomi is kind of a back-end API. There is no front end for Apache Unomi. So they are working on releasing a front end so that it's a little bit more obvious to see what's going on. But I'm just going to kind of show the back end to that. All right. So some of the core concepts you need to be familiar with. There's the idea of a base item. In Apache Unomi and in Elasticsearch, there's a general data structure that we refer to as the item. Basically, it just has an ID and a type. And then from there, we inherit all of the other data structures. So the profile is our basic construct for what is a user. The idea here is that in Apache Unomi and in Elasticsearch, a profile is just a single JSON document. And inside of that, we collect properties about the user. We also maintain information about scopes and lists. As you have a user kind of interacting with your site and generating these events, Apache Unomi has kind of an event collector where you can collect all these events. And then everything is kind of designed around sessions. So when you're collecting events all happen within a session. And for the most part, I believe these are terms that I think people might be familiar with. So as far as like a business case or like how does this get deployed out there are a few diagrams that have been in previous presentations that I like to talk about. The first case here is providing kind of a custom experience to the browser. So in this scenario, the user visits the site, and then at some point, the browser actually goes down to Apache Unomi context server to retrieve the context back. And then after getting that context and maybe getting the profile or creating a profile, then there are interfaces for sort of exchanging those events. Similarly with the mobile app, there's sort of three things that are kind of going on here. So again, in the first one, we're just sort of figuring out who is this person. And then the next one, we sort of activate the session. So number 2 is a session. And then from there, we can kind of maintain events, and we can also provide personalized experience, either by going from the app to Unomi, or from an intermediary CMS that they might be interacting with down to Unomi to get things. And this model here is effectively a model that we use. We have kind of a mobile app, and in the middle of that, we have our middleware, our CMS system, our case management system. And then the back end of all of our stuff is Unomi. So our case management system does not actually save any data. So, all right, now the terms that you probably might not be intuitive are these here, and these are actually the real beef of Apache Unomi. And in general, they should be able to understand. So conditions are basically just Boolean logic, right? So someone's income is above 12,000. But it can also be strung together, so you can make a larger Boolean logic. So it's income over 12,000, and they're female, and they are maybe pregnant. Actions in Unomi, there's a default set of actions, but these are basically things that are codified in Java that can be triggered. So, for example, the set property action. There's also email actions and things like that. One of the actions that I've contributed is just general webhook action, which is super helpful. And when we combine together rules, or when we combine together conditions and actions, that is how we create a rule. So a rule might say, if someone's income is under 12,000 and they're female, then set a property action that says they're likely eligible for our services. And very similarly to rules, I think if you understand rules, it's very easy to understand segments. Segments are basically just rules without actions. The only action is like add them to a segment. So when you're creating a segment, you're basically just defining a condition, and then you're defining what segment they should go into if they meet that condition. All right. So the big reason that I love Apache Unomi and was so drawn to it was I saw it was all JSON based and no custom code for the most part. This is about as custom code as it gets. So here I sort of have an action. The set property action is a built-in Unomi action. And basically what we're just saying, this action is just set the property, the eligibility property on the profile to yes. Now we also have a way of kind of extending these, and I really like this. I'm not sure if anyone here is familiar with Apache Airflow, but Airflow actually has a very similar, and one of the reasons I like this a lot is Airflow has something similar with extensions. So basically you're just inheriting from, or I guess in Java, implementing the action executor class, and then all you have to do is define an execute method. So you can do anything in the execute method. So you can make any number of actions on your own if you know Java, you're really good Java, interlude on extensions, right? So just in the same way that you have the actions, there's also a condition. Here we just have one condition that's just basically made up of two sub-conditions. And you can kind of see, I like this example because it might not be immediately obvious how to kind of do the and because of the JSON. But what I will tell you is if you trying to create an interface on your own rules engine to interpret this kind of JSON data structure, in my opinion, is not trivial. And so I really like that you can kind of do this. So you see here, basically we're saying their annual income is less than 12,000. And in this scenario, we're just saying that their profile was updated. So this is a condition that is only true when the update happens. So when the update happens with their income, then the condition is true. It's not true after that because it's an update. So, okay. So I have a brief little tutorial here to just demo some of these concepts. So I do believe I still have it open. Those of you maybe following along, or if you have it on your own, it's just a Ghen Unomi tutorial. I actually recently contributed this to the website as well, so you can find some of this on the Apache Unomi website under resources tutorials. But I just wanted to sort of show you kind of how to get started here because there is no front end. So briefly what I have going on my computer is I just have Docker running with Elasticsearch and Unomi. And this you can get running in another repository, the Unomi Docker repository. And basically this is just an easy way. The alternative would be to kind of install on Ubuntu, download Guitar. So this is just an easy way to get up for evaluation purposes. And with this running, on the web browser here, basically what we can do is we can see that certain, so here's kind of what a profile looks like. It's bigger. So at this host, which might be a little difficult to see, it's localhost colon 88 8181. I have some endpoints in the context server that you can kind of look at. There's a whole series of available endpoints, and what I was saying earlier was like some of these more advanced features, sort of goals and scoring. I haven't even really had a chance to get into them because we're sort of still working on the segments. But there is a lot here to explore. So if we just look at a general profile, they all have some of these like system properties. So it's like what segments are they in, what are their scores. There's an advanced feature around merging duplicate portfolios. You can define merge rules, which is super useful. So anyway, let's just jump back here for a second. I can just sort of show you what we have going on. So the profile you saw earlier had a little bit more information in the properties. It had their income and things, but this is basically the start of a portfolio. And for the purposes of this, I'm just going to change their ID to 1 so that we can actually show it's a new portfolio or a new profile being created. And as you can see, it's almost as simple as basic HTTP auth request to the Unomi server. So like I said earlier with the REST API, it's all RESTful interface. They are actually, some of the people at the PMCs are exploring Graph API as well. But for now, I just have kind of this simple little Python example. So before I do that, I actually also want to show one other example. There's also the idea in Unomi of sessions. And so if you do want to work with events or other things, you actually need to tie, this is something the community is still looking at, but you do need to currently tie things to sessions. So if you create a portfolio, a profile, and you want to do track events, you need to have those events within the context of a session. So there is a way kind of around this, which is if you just create every portfolio creates one session. So we don't really need that idea of sessions. So we just create portfolio and then create a session with the same ID. So every portfolio profile has one session. In the future, maybe we'll explore sessions. But so I just want to show that and just speak to that too, where you have to kind of first create the profile and then you can create the session. And once you've created a profile and you've created a session, you're all set up to start tracking all your events. So anyway, I'll just go back and just sort of show the one profile. And I'm just going to real quickly run this little bit of code, which I believe I have in here, just to show you that we created a profile. Okay, so the new profile has been created, and I can just use the REST interface just to kind of look at the API or look at the profile. So you see, it's just first name and last name for now, which is pretty straightforward. So now at this point, what I want to show you is what took me a little bit longer to figure out, which was rules. So earlier I was speaking about the rule being if their income is less than 12,000 and the event is like an event update. I have that codified here. We sort of saw some of the code earlier in parts, but the first part we have is our condition. So this is just saying their income is less than 12,000, and that would be the property annual income. So on their profile, we're looking in with that like properties dot property name syntax. You're basically just indexing into this Elasticsearch document. And then the second part down here, which is the action. So basically, when that happens in real time, Unomi will evaluate these, and it will basically set that property on it. And again, here's that same syntax. You get more complicated with this syntax because it's all Elasticsearch. A lot of the interfacing with Unomi, if you know Elasticsearch, is kind of a pass-through. So for example, searching profiles is just you're passing through Elasticsearch queries. So in this scenario, I just basically first create the rule, and then once the rule is created, what I do is I go ahead and just issue an update post, and I set that profile to just have $10,000 in income, 10,000. So when I run this, I'll go ahead and do the same thing that I just did. And before I run, I just want to show you, the profile does not have any it's just first and last name. Okay. So you might notice the 204, it's just a blank response, something I've been looking into, but is it okay? That's telling me I created a rule. And then the second one is telling me that I've updated the profile. And you'll see that already, even when I get the profile right back, the profile right away has that eligibility. It is real time. That's one of the core features of Unomi. And it's one of the core challenges I pose to people who believe that maybe they can make a better segmentation engine, rules engine, which is like, how do you scale that to 5 million people and 1,000 rules, right? And do that in real time. And still, Apache Unomi, from a performance perspective, is still evaluating that. And I believe the solution the community is coming towards is integrating with Kafka or using Kafka on the inside to kind of speed it up. It's a known bottleneck, but what I can tell you is that the people, the PMC, Sergey, who runs Jahai marketing, I believe, in Switzerland, they are running it in production with, I believe, 5 million people and about 1,000 rules. And it's working fine for them. They address the issue with just scaling up their Elasticsearch clusters and things like that. So anyway, sorry about that interlude. So if we come back to the profile and sort of look at it, oh, you know, it's actually let me just change the ID here. I want to make a new profile so it's not actually magic, so that it's actually showing you this, it's real. So here's our profile, our 101 profile, out the annual income. So I don't actually.
Did you run the right user script?
I believe I did, yeah. Did I not save this here? I'll do this here. You know, sometimes one of the things that I've seen is these understanding which way is it doing the comparison. So maybe let me just try the opposite direction. Well, I'm going to do the fake magic then. And then, so basically you get your updated rule, and it just adds eligibility to yes. So when these rules are evaluated. And if you find the script for the rule, I'll just show you what the document for the rule looks like, because you can see all of your rules in a nice like JSON format. So if I do grab, I have this thing saved. So if we look at the rule itself, you can sort of see that it does kind of keep these conditions. This is also super helpful for a previous rules engine I had created with someone where all of the rules, and this is what I commonly see, is all of the rules that have ever been created are all commits as code. The nice thing about Unomi is all of the rules created are saved as JSON documents in Elasticsearch, and so viewing all of your rules and updating all of your rules is actually a lot easier. It's not necessarily require a code commit. Sort of do it on top yourself. So that was a quick demo, which I hope everyone was okay with. And the last thing that I want to do is just talk about, I have 2 slides left here, about extensions, integrations, and just the general Unomi architecture for those of you interested. So I was not familiar with Karapa. It's interesting, and I like the idea that you can kind of deploy your own extensions into the Kafka, I believe it's like the runtime environment, or the Kafka, I guess it's kind of like Docker. So I really like that because I've written my own extensions, and you don't necessarily need to commit them into Unomi code. You can actually just run them up and spin them up in Kafka, and it will know through OSGI. I'm kind of speaking on topics I'm not sort of sure how they work, but I've gotten them to work successfully for me, and they're really great. But you can see there are a series of services here, and the one thing that I'm just going to say about the architecture is I personally don't feel comfortable building something at this scale that will scale to the level I want with the features that I want. And so having the guys in Switzerland who are working on it and a bunch of other people working on it makes me really comfortable using it, and makes me really, from a business perspective, really excited that I can get basically another handful of developers working on this. And as far as the integrations goes and extensions goes, there are connectors that exist. I haven't explored these too much. There's one example for MailChimp and for Salesforce. There's also a call for connectors. So if you are looking for opportunities to contribute, creating a connector would be very well received. And then where I kind of play is in the plugins. So you can kind of write your own plugins. I do believe I had, just to sort of show you, a webhook action plugin. I actually found this process, I did a little Java in college, I'm a big Python person, but I actually found the process of creating this to be very straightforward, very easy. Again, I showed a little bit earlier. You're just creating your own execute method. The harder part of doing this is actually figuring out how to do a post in Java, not necessarily how to figure out where to put my code in Unomi so that it will work. So, and what I will say is that, again, if anyone's hearing this and thinking that this is great and it just doesn't have that integration with what you need it to, just get in touch, because I've been contributing a lot to this, so the code is top of mind. I'd be happy to kind of get you started. So yeah, thanks for attending. If anybody happens to know anything about, or is anyone in the space for social services and is interested in what I was talking about earlier with my use case for Apache Unomi, definitely get in touch with me afterwards. So, thank you. Anybody has any questions?
Yeah, last time I tried to play with Unomi, the part that got me was connecting my authentication system, but like identified like which user was logging in to profile service, like which profiles are you permitted to look at. Like, is there a authentication system you found particularly easy to connect with?
That's a good question, and I guess it's good that I have this sort of diagram. We don't have an authentication system with Unomi because it's sort of a machine-based auth. So the people that we interface with Unomi, they're actually not going directly to Unomi. We don't build a user interface on top of Unomi. So it's really just what application wants to get data out of Unomi. For now, that's kind of how we handle it. And then the way that we block off information is with Unomi scopes. So if you noticed on the profile I was showing earlier, there's actually a scopes list for profiles down here. Or there will essentially be a scopes property set. And with that, you can control who sees what, and people can look at different scopes. There's also user lists, and so you could put people on different user lists and control that way. As far as just integrating with auth, I think was your actual question. No, we don't use that as a way to do it. But I think with metadata on the profiles, you could achieve that same result. And that, in fact, that's exactly how we do it. Like, we have the concept of a service network or service source is what people do. Great question. So, yes, in the back. Great. No tools. We build our own front end because what we're doing is so simple. It's basically counts, right? Counts and time series. So no, I haven't. As far as what tools you could connect to it, it'd be anything that could do Elasticsearch because it's all Elasticsearch on the back end. That's another thing that's kind of attractive about Unomi, and something that you'll hear in other talks about Unomi is because it is all just back to Elasticsearch, you can completely bypass Unomi Java server and go into Elasticsearch that way. So I believe that if I was going to maybe look for tools that would work, I would just check, hey, does it have Elasticsearch? Can it do Elasticsearch? I know a tool I use a lot, Redash, does have Elasticsearch capabilities, but another tool, a proprietary tool I use, Looker, does not have Elasticsearch. It's one of their integrations. So, good question. Yeah. Yes.
So, do you know if like the rules that you showed, like the conditional ruling stuff, does that use the percolator in Elasticsearch, or is it like something within?
That's a good question, and I'm not 100% sure. I don't know.
I'm just curious, like, when you have the second one being like kind of an event more than like a condition, right?
Right.
There's the potential that like the handling will fail or a system will crash in the middle of that, and then like will that trigger again when things come back up, or like you have to worry about maintaining that state, or the system like take care of that for you?
That's a good question. I believe that if it fails, it will write to the logs. I don't think there's any sort of failure handling. So I think, and it was a little embarrassing that mine wasn't working, but I'll tell you what was probably happening. If I look in the logs, there's probably something wonky in the logs. So yeah, if your vet fails, I don't know what underlying mechanism it's using from a technical perspective to do the rules evaluation. Beyond, I know that, what I said earlier about the scaling that they have. The one thing that I will say about my rules is that I find the rules was really hard, and the thing that you saw me flip greater than less than, that I spent like a day trying to figure out, and this event update thing. So we have the rules that we have about 5 rules. We have to test, they take a little while to get right, but what we do like is once they get right, they're actually not so bad to edit. But yeah, and I don't think it's any failing in the Unomi tool. I think it's just my understanding of how it's designed to work is still new. Great question.
Another one.
Yeah.
So Elastic themselves actually, at least until somewhat recently, was cautioning against people using Elasticsearch as a system of record.
Sure.
Have they, like, I'm assuming that the Apache Unomi team is like comfortable with caveats and stuff like that. Like, is there any kind of guidelines they have, or like things they do to mitigate that?
That's a good question. I didn't actually know that was a thing I could see, but I do think that the trend, and maybe on the listserv ask, is to go towards something like Kafka. And I think with that, it's as a replacement to Elasticsearch, or maybe it's something, the persistent storage that Elasticsearch would then kind of be using or not using as persistent. So no, I don't know of anything baked into the tool for it. I just know the direction is kind of Kafka and streaming to address some of the scaling and the speed of evaluating all the rules. Good questions. Other questions? All right, well, thank you again. I hope everyone enjoys lunch.